Now we are talking about volume. This is F.4 on the Algebra 1 IXL. This is 0-9 from our Algebra 1 class. So for this one, we're talking, like I said, volume. So it's basically how many units it would take to fill a 3D object. And you can see my like C- grade drawings on the screen here, trying to set this all up beforehand before we hit record. A couple different formulas to think about, and then we can kind of think about how we get there and what units go where, what values go for what variables. So let's just get into this one and we'll kind of discuss as we go. So for this one, it wants to know the volume of the cylinder in the green here. It says use pi is roughly equal to 3.14. So you can just type that in if you're using the calculator and round your answer to the nearest hundredth. So for hundredth, that's 2 decimal places is basically what you can think of. Okay, so we need to figure out which of these to use based on my picture. Even though it's a little iffy, you can tell that we're going with this one here, and we have our volume equation. So volume equals, remember when the variables are next to each other like this, that means multiplication. Pi times r squared times h. So pi, they tell you they want you to use the 3.14 for that one. R is going to be the radius. That's this distance from the center of like the circular face of the cylinder to the edge. So that's the 10. And then h is height. So that's the 8. So essentially we just need to plug those in. Remember what it means to square something. You could use the squared button on the calculator, but just so you know, r squared is the same thing as r times r, something times itself, so that would be like 10 times 10 here. So essentially what we have and what I'm going to plug in, I'll kind of talk slowly as I plug it in here, so you could do the same. 3.14, that is pi, times, and then 10 is that radius, that half distance across the circular face, times 10 again, in case I don't want to hit squared. If you hit squared, then don't do 10 a second time. And then times 8, which was the height. When I plug that all in, I'm going to get 2,512. And again, kind of like the last couple, oops, typo there, it gives you the units. These are cubic yards because we're in 3D. So cubic kind of translates to 3, and we're in 3D. All right. Okay, so for this one, we're going with this shape at the bottom where we have the volume equals 1/2 times, I actually wrote out the dots here, but it all means the same thing as this. 1/2 times length times width times height. So 1/2 is obvious, it's always 1/2. The length, the width, and the height, you see how it gives us like 3 measurements right here? Doesn't matter which one you use as what. It's all multiplication, so the order doesn't matter. So you could do 864, 468, or any other combination you wish, as long as you use each one once. In my head, I would think of it probably as 1/2, and then let's say times. The length I would probably think as this, so 8. The width I would probably think of as this 6. And then the height I would probably think of this dotted line as 4. Again, if you put it in the opposite way, it's fine. Okay, so if I multiply those all together, 1/2 times 8 times 6 times 4, or if you like decimals like me, you could put 0.5 times 8 times 6 times 4, and you would get 96 there. Again, it already gives you the units. Just be careful in case that is not the case in the future. And it would be 96 cubic, and it's meters because of that M there. Awesome. Okay, we've already covered a cylinder, so I'll just touch on this real quick and then I'll jump to the next one. Remember we used this for a cylinder, but but it doesn't give us the radius. It gives us the distance all the way across. So what you need to think about is, what's the halfway distance? Well, if the whole way is 6, the diameter is 6, that means the radius is 3. So you would use 3 in that spot. You do 3.14 times 3 times 3 times 9. Okay. Let's jump forward. What is the volume? So now we have something that fits what we have here. We're going to do length times width times height. Again, because it is multiplication, the order doesn't matter, and that's even more true here because all these numbers are the same. So it's basically 13 times 13 times 13. So 2,197. I'm realizing now that in the last video I had an error at the end. I'll have to go back and address that. I'm filming a couple of these back to back. I think on one of them I put like 2 times the thing instead of that value squared. Okay, a triangular pyramid. So when we come up to triangular pyramid, we need to think about what's given to us again. So we got the 9, the 18, and the 14. And then from there, we got to look at all of our pictures and kind of what we can use as our formula here. So our closest one is the bottom here, the 1/3 times length times width times height. But if you notice, the bottom of this figure is a square. So essentially what we need here is, unless I'm not looking at this as a square or something like that, we're just going to had some technical error and it sent me to the next problem, but yeah, because I didn't realize my screen stopped recording until I already hit submit. So let's discuss the last one real quick so you can go back. I don't have the picture in front of me obviously anymore, but the issue was we were going to use this formula. However, the question provided only had a triangular base, not the square. So what that means is we would basically have to cut the whole thing in half because, you know, half of this wouldn't exist in the figure that was provided, only another half. So one simple change is we would have this formula, except instead of 1/3 at the beginning, we're taking a half of the whole thing, and a half of a third is a sixth. So it would be that entire formula again, except the volume would equal 1/6, and we get that by taking half of a third. If you did that original formula and took a half at the end, it would be the same number. And then plugged in all of our values. You guys will be able to rewind and see it, but I don't see it now. But I think the answer was like 378 or something along those lines. Okay, let's keep moving forward though. Let's see what else we are given. So something like this, and I'll just kind of touch on this as we had that issue with the last one. Anytime you have these like pyramids where the bottoms are different shapes, so like a square and then a triangle with this and then a circle here, it's basically, let's see if I can pick a different color here to kind of emphasize. It's basically the area times a third instead of a half, because we're in 3D, times the height. So the area of a square is this length times width. The area of a triangle is 1/2, which is part of this, length times width. So to get area of a circle, let's write that out, and I'll change my color back now. area of a circle is pi r squared. So what we'll have for volume is 1/3 times that pi r squared. Pi r, oops, not cubed, squared, and then times height to make the whole thing like 3D. So if I look at this one and I plug that in, essentially what I would have is 1/3 times, and then 3.14 times, tells me that halfway across is 9. So 9 squared, or 9 times 9, and then times 19, which is the height. And that gives me 1,610.82. The 2 is the 100th spot, so we don't have to really cut anything off. 1610.82. Awesome. So that's kind of the logic that we're following here. So all these new ones are all based off the bottom of the pyramid. Okay, let's see if it throws anything else at us. Okay, we'll make this the last one. We did something like this with area as well. I think that's the one I was mentioning earlier where I kind of messed something up in the explanation. But the volume is 440. So let's rewind a little here. So we have 440 as the volume, so we know what it equals. And then we'll put the equal sign. And we know for something of this shape, it's length times width times height. So it would be like 8 times 11 times j. And remember, the order that you put these three things in doesn't matter because it's multiplication. 8 times 11 is 88. We'll go ahead and simplify that. Remember, even if I don't show the dot, a number and a letter next to each other like that means multiplication. So 440. Oh, that's a rough 4. Let's try that again. Eventually we'll get the touchscreen going. That's better. You can at least tell it's a 4. Now, because this is multiplication connecting these two things, and I want to get j by itself, I need to cancel the 88. But I need to do it to both sides of the equal sign. So what I'm left with now is I'm just going to have j equals, and then 440 divided by 88 is 5. So we plug that in and hope that j, our missing side, is 5 centimeters. Awesome. So this same kind of idea, you should have enough info from the previous couple minutes of the video. It gives you the answer. You're solving for the missing height, and you're using the one that I just got rid of before that last problem because it's a circular base. So we'll call this one here. I'll have to edit the two sides of this video together to put all the info in. We'll have like a rainbow cut there, but it's alright. Alright, see you guys.